Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Day One Podcast. I'm Brett Nord.
I'm Adam Daly.
And we're back with another great episode.
On this crazy snowy day in Utah.
What is up with that? What happened to spring coming?
March, what is it, 8th? My
Boo.
goodness.
Boo.
It's another journal entry to record, I guess.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
We're honored to be joined today by senior engineer developer here at Day One.
BJ Homer.
BJ's back.
Hi, I'm back.
Right. Back for more.
We've been planning this for a few weeks now because we knew version 3 for Mac was going to be out, and we wanted to get BJ back on and talk about all things V3.
Yes.
And, you know, just get his insight on the development side. Maybe some choices that we made along the way, you know, what made us do this, and how does that work, and how does that kind of prepare us for the future of what Day One will be, all that kind of stuff. So we're here to ask him questions and, you know, figure that out.
You're caught up on sleep?
Yeah, mostly.
All right, good. All right.
I'm here to be grilled.
Yes.
Let's... I hope so. Brett's got some zingers in there.
I
He already
really do.
told me the prep questions. But let's talk a little bit about updates. There's not a ton going on right. I mean, we're working obviously, but stuff that's still on the pipeline coming down is the Instagram importer. It's being tested internally right now, and it's looking pretty good. Have you tried that out?
I've seen it. I haven't actually. I don't have an Instagram account of my own, so
Me neither. Me neither.
I do.
Good.
One entry.
I was going to say, maybe just give me your creds and I'll try it out on mine. But
It takes like a millisecond to import mine.
no. But I do know that a couple of the other engineers use Instagram quite a bit, and they've been using it. And I've seen that going and stuff. So,
And the idea is that it's going to be way better than our IFT integration with Instagram. It's going to be better than the activity feed integration, because what this will do, you connect your Instagram account, it imports all historical data, and then it will also include future posts that you put on there. So as the data syncs, we're using their API and pulling down new posts. So those will just start automatically coming into a journal for you. It's really cool. Plus, it's also going to support video.
I think so. Yeah.
And multiple photos. So if you're doing multiple photos on Instagram, those will be included. So it's really good.
What about the Instagram stories? Do we know? Will those come in? Is that a separate? That's not
I think
really
those
part
are
of the
separate.
feed.
I think those are separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, so you mentioned this briefly, but this is going to be kind of our first foray into video.
Right. Which is also coming along.
Yeah.
It's still being tested internally. I think there's still some decisions to be made as far as like limitations go. Obviously, we're not going to have 4K HD video at 3 hours or something. This isn't Star Wars, but it'll be good for your memories. I'm excited about it. But yeah, the Instagram importer is still coming down the pipeline.
Yes.
Anything else?
You can have Star Wars memories, just not the full length feature you're talking about. Yeah,
In your Day One journal.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, the other thing we wanted to talk about is V3. Now, we did have a minor release just after that, 3.0.1. It fixed a couple of things. And we're still working on some other things that we want to address coming soon, I think, in 3.0.2.
Yeah, we just put out the first beta this morning.
Awesome.
So
It's got some fixes in it. It's got some adjustments. But we want to get into all of that as much as we can. And, man, we should ask people if they want to ask questions to BJ right now. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
Do you want to get started, and then I'll?
Yeah,
well,
sure.
let's talk about. Let's just get into it right now and talk about V3.
We know where to find BJ for follow-up after the podcast.
That's right.
We can do a post online about it.
But I think big question is, this was a major release. There were a lot of changes. The interface changed quite a bit. I mean, it still has that journal feel, and you got your sidebar of journals, your timeline, and then your entry view and stuff like that. Kind of high level. What went into this development for this version?
yeah, so V3 really is a big change in terms of the interface. We rebuilt a good chunk of it. The interface layer of the app is almost entirely new, and that involved a lot of changes. So like previously we had the single pane and dual pane options. We decided to focus on one thing rather than trying to maintain two designs at the same time. One of the things, when you used to be in single pane mode, when you could do that, and you'd select a journal, it would like slide in left and right. And that code for managing all that sliding, all the interface stuff and making it smoothly update and the little icons up in the toolbar, they would all move. I wrote all that. And so in some ways I was really sad to say, my baby is being killed over here.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's nice that we're getting to a really solid foundation for the app, and it's using a lot of more standard things. That means that as Apple updates things in the future, we automatically get updates. You know, when they released dark mode, for example, in Mojave, we don't have to do a bunch of work in this design to support all of that,
because we're using the system settings.
Right.
And
You know, I mean,
tools.
we've still applied a day one feel to it, but
Because a lot of like gradient choices and color stuff is our design, but we're using their framework to implement it and have it switch over and back and forth using the system setting, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So underneath, like the internal workings of the app, a lot of that's still about the same.
Cool.
But the interface has changed quite dramatically, and now we have the multiple windows and stuff like that.
Now there was entries and new windows in the previous version too. This seems to be a lot cleaner though. A lot less going on in the new entry and new window.
Right.
Kind of
Yeah.
view.
What happened before was you could have multiple windows, but each window was actually like a full day one app window. Like you could open it up in the other thing, but then you could hit back and go back and have like duplicate timelines.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Right. And so now.
Parallel universes, basically.
Right. Which, I mean, technically you can still do that. Like if you right click on a journal, you can say open in new window or open in new tab. And so you can still have those. But we have a separate focused window just for creating a new entry that doesn't have all of the other stuff going on.
Nice distraction-free writing. I think a lot of our users do prefer that. Like,
Right.
nothing else going on, just kind of a blank canvas to put all your entries in. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Performance-wise, does that impact performance? Getting rid of the dual versus single pane option?
In some cases it can. So for example, in the case of that single entry window, even when you're not showing the main timeline, it still has to keep track of what's going on.
Right.
And so like if you had that secondary window open and you're typing in there, it's still updating what you're seeing on the timeline that's hidden in that window. And so then you've potentially got multiple timelines updating at the same time. That affects performance.
Sure.
We have made quite a few other performance changes. We've also made some changes to reuse more of the existing code that we have on iOS rather than implementing things twice.
Oh, okay. Like what? What does that mean?
So there's the code that decides, I've got the timeline, a new entry appeared, and maybe it appeared in the middle.
Okay.
Right? Or maybe I have an existing entry and I changed the date and now it needs to move into a new section with a new like month header and such. So we used to have two different sort of code paths for that.
Okay.
And so
Like choose your own adventure.
Right. So the Mac had one and iOS had the other. And the downside of that is, if we come back and say, this is feeling really slow, let's go fix it. Well, if we fix it on iOS, that doesn't fix it on Mac when they have two separate code bases. And now that we have that they're sharing the same code, it means that changes that we make or improvements that we make on either platform will benefit both of them.
Nice.
So we've talked to some of the iOS team in the past.
Yep.
Some of what you're talking about, BJ, they can actually work on the Mac app because of that now and help you in development on the Mac.
Yeah, in fact, we've had two of them quite heavily on the Mac app for the last month or two.
Yeah.
That's been great.
Awesome.
Cool. I don't have any questions here on Facebook yet, but I did ask the question just to see if we got any. But I thought that would be fun.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about the challenges. So UI you mentioned in the pains, but what would you say was the number one thing like you had a hard time cracking?
Sometimes it's the little things that are hard. I tell my wife that I enjoy this job because I get to work on so many different things. Sometimes I'm spending time working on sync and networking and data transferring and moving data from one place to another and getting it onto disk and stuff like that. And other times I'm working on, like I'll spend a whole morning getting one little row of pixels to look right. And it's very different. And we did have a lot of challenges with the animation kind of stuff this time. Like getting the multiple panes side by side and getting it to look right. There was cases where the dividers were looking wrong and you got weird effects going on there. So we spent quite a bit of time really polishing the interface and figuring out what was going on and getting that to look right.
Awesome.
I'm here to I go on the subreddit Explain It Like I'm 5 all the time because then I can learn things really well.
Yes.
Hopefully I can kind of be that guy here and interpret some of these things. But no, BJ's really good at teaching, and we actually see you do that a lot here at Day One. You get an opportunity to mentor some of our younger junior devs, right?
Yeah, I do. That's one of the things that I really like here is I get to spend a lot of time helping and teaching. In fact, before I came into programming, I considered going into teaching. I considered being a teacher because I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So it's fun that I get to do that here.
This is coming from a guy that's wearing a shirt about dad jokes right now.
Absolutely.
noticed.
That shirt is hilarious. I love dad jokes. Oh my goodness.
Not mine, though.
Yes, I do.
noticed.
Once
Okay.
I get them.
How about this one? What did Noah call... wait a minute. How did Noah get the bees on the ark?
Something with honey. I don't know.
Jay, any guess? Archives. He archived them.
Yep, got it.
Okay, sorry. That was a bad dad joke.
No, that's good.
Oh, was it? Okay, good.
That's good.
All right.
There's a lot of I don't want to jump ahead too fast, but there's a lot of like hidden things that you can do in day one. That I mean, just that they're there, but maybe not 100% apparent. How do we get from like brand new user to get familiar with those things? Like, is there? I don't know. How do we? I don't know. How do we solve the problem of just like simplified, intuitive mechanisms? I guess.
Right. This is a challenge that you have in a lot of software where if you make it really easy and really simple, then people are complaining about, it doesn't have the power I need to do what I need to do. And if you have a really powerful app, then it feels really overwhelming to beginners. So you want to have a term that sometimes uses progressive disclosure, where it starts out and you see a little bit of it. And as you get in, you see a little bit more and a little bit more, and you start learning the things that you can do. So, when you first come into the app, for example, we added a little thing that says when you open up the journal for the first time, it's empty. There's now a little thing that says, hey, add an entry, and then you'll get stuff here.
This will fill up. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Instead of just being empty and not knowing what's there, right? So we give some guidance for new users, and then as you start adding entries, that goes away. As we start getting into the more advanced things, for example, if you go click on the file menu or some of the menus in the app, it lists keyboard shortcuts there that tell you, things that you can do that you may not have known that you could do, like create a new entry in a new window.
Shift, Command N.
Yeah.
Or you can actually switch that in the preferences too. You can have that as your default Command N if you want.
Right. Yep. So as users explore, the menu bar, or, as they explore preferences, they might find things that aren't there. And honestly, that doesn't mean that we do it perfectly.
Sure.
I think there are some things that could stand to be more visible. We did add a few things. So in the entry view down at the bottom, if you see where
we're going to be describing, I think, a few things here. So if you have the Mac app and you want to get it out and kind of follow along as we try to describe this, we talked about doing a video presentation at some other point, just to kind of go through some of these things. But right now we'll just do the audio portion of it. And then, so hopefully this is helpful in getting to know a little bit about some of the things you can do.
Yeah, so if you open up an entry, you start typing, you'll see down at the bottom that it shows your location and maybe the weather information. And in a bunch of places throughout the app, in version 3, we've added the abilities that when you hover over it with your mouse, it adds a little background hover thing that indicates, hey, this is clickable. You can click on this. It was previously possible in version 2, if you had tags down at the bottom, you could click on those and it would filter by them. But it wasn't really obvious that you could click on them because they didn't have that little highlight. And so we've added that sort of hover background in a bunch of places to indicate, hey, this is clickable and you can do things with it without it being super obtrusive and having a big border around it all the time.
That's helpful. Well, and just like you said, other things like the keyboard shortcuts, some of those, customizable. And then some of them, you're looking for these. Like, for example, the plus button at the top right of the app, you can do command click on it, and it will open in a new window automatically. Whereas if you just click on it, it will do a new entry within the dual pane view.
Yeah.
Correct? So things like that are there. There are some keyboard shortcuts. I know we've got some feature requests for others, like how to quickly add a link rather than having to right click on it or something like that. So those are things that the support team is filing away and putting in our feature request list, but some of those things are available now to you. And editing links, that wasn't there before in 2.9.2, so that's kind of nice. Ever since 2.8, that's really helpful. So you can highlight a word or a phrase, right click on it, and then add a link to it, and you can also edit that link later on, which I think is a huge help. So tell me about the photos now. The layout of the timeline switched up a bit. Is that mostly a design decision, or is there development reasons behind some of those things as well? Like, so now on the timeline, I've got my photos on the right-hand side. We're only showing one photo, but there is an indicator if there's multiple. There's also an indicator if there's audio or checklists, and it kind of shows you a real-time indicator of like how many checklists are checked, completed, or whatever. So can we talk about that a little bit and just what happened there with the timeline redesign?
Yeah, so a lot of that is a design decision. And one of the things that we had to think about as we're designing this is how do we handle, as we start adding more audio and more media types, right? With photos, it's okay, you can just put them in there. But like audio doesn't really have a thumbnail. Right. Or if you have photos and audio, or, as we had video, if you have videos and photos and audio, having the little collage there maybe makes sense for some of those, but doesn't necessarily make sense for all of them.
Right.
We also wanted to be able to show if you have a checklist of things.
Yeah, and how many are
completed, right?
I really love that, yeah.
Right. And so we decided to focus on having a single sort of thumbnail preview area that shows, it'll show one of the photos, it'll also show an indication of how many audios there are and the duration. No, it doesn't show how many audios, but it shows the duration of the audio, right? So if you've got 7 minutes of audio in this thing, and how many photos and how many videos, as
the cumulative.
Yep, and how many checklists. So before we had maybe one bigger photo and then a couple of smaller ones, we decided to use all of that space to be able to have a little more room for those labels, to be able to show the various metadata points. We also...
It's really clean looking, and for me personally, I'm not a designer, so I don't have any credibility necessarily in this, but or street cred. But what I like about it is it's now even. If I've got media there, it's all the same. Whereas if I had the multiple views, where I've got one larger photo and two smaller ones, and then an indicator that there's even more than that, it would kind of push my content into a narrower field, and so this looks way more uniform to me.
You can't imagine how much time BJ and I spent to line everything up. Right? I mean, it was behind the scenes.
Had rulers and everything.
Yeah, it was not easy.
Get out there with a pencil drawing on the screen. No. Another thing that we did is we made the date overview button more prominent. So it used to be kind of off in the right corner. And I think we have plans to further develop that
on the left-hand side, the date by each entry.
Yep. So if you hover over it, you can see it's clickable, and if you click on that, it'll select all of the entries on that date, and give
put
you
them
an
in the
overview.
day view on the right-hand side. Yeah,
Yep.
That's a really cool feature. So that may not be straight up intuitive right away, but if you're moving your mouse around, you can hover your mouse over the dates on the left-hand side of the timeline, and you can see that it will give you a little menu or not a menu, but just a display that says how many entries you have, what's the full date, etc. You can click on that, and it will put those entries in a day view on the right-hand side. That's a really cool feature. And I know there's still some improvements coming to the day view that I'm aware of that aren't there yet, but are being planned.
That's one of the things that we've heard from people that a lot of people are like, oh, do I do one entry per day and just update it multiple times, or do I do multiple entries per day? What should I do? We want to make it so that people can do multiple entries per day and capture all those separate moments and still have a nice overview of the whole day.
Yes.
And we're not entirely there yet. That's something that we're still working toward.
Yep. That's still really cool. And actually, I was just noticing this. I didn't notice this before. When you have one entry selected, on the right panel there, you've got the More icon, which will give you additional options that you can do, including word count right now, if you're familiar with that. And then there's a new entry, what do they call it? New window.
Yep.
That's the new window icon, where it will pop that entry out into a new entry. But if I'm looking at the day view with multiple entries, that actually changed to a share icon. I didn't know that was the thing.
Yeah.
So I can export just these two entries on that day,
Yep.
to JSON,
Nice.
PDF, HTML, etc. Or I can open in one of those things where I can just print those two entries. So that's actually really cool. I didn't notice that. So different things become available as you try, looking around and figuring out what's going on here. So I like that.
Another thing that we've added to make it more prominent, at least in this version, is the filter menu right up at the top, the little filter button. So if you click on that, it goes through and lets you see, I want to only see entries that have audio. I only want to see entries that, have certain tags. We've also put on this day in there.
which is new. Well, kind of new to Mac.
Right. It was there, but it was really kind of hard to find. So it's
Yeah.
a lot more prominent now, and you can find that. And that's another case of that sort of day view that we're going to keep working on and keep improving.
Do you think on the filter that could be an option for people that wanted to select two?
You can.
You can.
You
I'm
can,
sorry, I
yep.
didn't see that. I thought it was only one. Awesome.
Yep. So if I want to say I only want to see entries that have audio and that were in a particular year or something, you can do that.
Awesome.
What about tags? Is there still any or all tags? Because that was a thing one time, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a thing, and it looks like it's not there right now. But we should do that because that is a question that often comes up: is when people,
Any or all tags,
right? If I say, oh, I want to have posts about Kid 1 and Kid 2, and do I only want the posts that have both of them in it?
Right.
Or do I want the posts that have either of them?
Right. Exactly. Okay. So, some things to look forward to there. Obviously, day one is an ongoing project, but this is really great. I really love the filters there.
Totally.
And I think, it cleans up the journal drawer too. I didn't use the journal drawer a lot in 292 and before, but I kind of like the information that I get here. Coming soon, we actually saw this on Monday. You'll be able to reorder your journals right here in the journal drawer without having to go into the preferences, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
Really cool way to do that. Plus, you get new journal right there. I can quickly get into that or get into the settings, and then there's a sync indicator there at the bottom, which will let you know that sync is being done. And also a redesign to the menu bar.
Yeah.
Look, can we talk about that for just a second? Because right now the menu bar is technically like a separate app, correct?
Yep.
And sync only happens when I have the full app opened. Is there plans to maybe integrate sync in just the menu bar?
It's
Great
something
question.
that we've talked about. It's kind of an interesting technical challenge of how to do that because you don't want both of them syncing at the same time. So
Okay.
what we would like to do, what I would like to do anyway, is if we get to that point, have potentially a third process in the background, kind of a third invisible app that's actually handling sync for both of them.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which that would be cool. It's a fair amount of work to get to that point.
But the idea is so it's not like overwriting data or anything like that, correct?
Right. Or so you're not getting duplicate entries and yeah.
Okay, cool. Just a thought there, because I know a lot of people seem to use the menu bar if they have a Mac, because it's a quick way to just jump right in without opening the full thing. But then sometimes the question is, well, how come my entry's not on my phone now?
Right.
And the idea is you do need to open up the full Mac app to get it to sync. But once that's done, it'll be on all your devices.
Yep.
But the redesign, really simple looking on the menu bar. I really love it. You still get location information. You still get other information. I can pop it into a new entry fields. So there's options to do that or switch the journal. So really clean looking stuff. Can we talk about the icon a little bit? I know that's a design thing. But I was having a conversation with one of our users about why we went away from the flat icon, especially when it seems that flat icons seem to be the trend right now. Thoughts?
We
I don't mean
know.
to dive into something that maybe not in your realm, but just curious.
I don't know. I think that there are some flat icons right now, but I think that's not necessarily. I guess I don't have a strong feel that is the trend that's going everywhere.
Well, it seems to be on iOS for sure.
Yeah.
I mean that's a different realm. It's on its own, but
Right.
I mean, because if you remember, what was that pre-iOS 7 where everything was 3D icons, and then iOS 7 came and everybody freaked out.
Right. Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
I agree. On iOS, the icons are often very flat, and I don't think we've gone away from that.
Sure.
But on Mac, I remember that as Paul was designing that, he actually was looking at the interface guidelines from Apple. and figuring out,
yes.
What is it? And it turns out that it's supposed to be
A
tilted at a 9-degree
9-degree angle.
not a 10-degree angle as they originally had it. So
But that's pretty much what they use on their tilted icons,
Yeah.
like mail or reminders and stuff like that. They have a 9-degree tilt.
Yep.
And so we're following suit there. I'm actually in love with it. I love, the small shadow on there, just the slight tilt. I think it looks really clean.
Yeah,
And it matches the stuff that's in my dock.
Yeah.
So, I guess we can come away with that. That's a personal decision or a personal design decision, but I really like it. I was just wondering if there was, I don't know, any thought as to
Yeah.
Art.
I think it looks really nice.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with it.
what else do we want to talk about?
Well, we talked about keywords, or keystrokes. I'd love to hear, BJ's, if you have a secret, keystroke or a hotkey that we don't know about.
Oh,
we can
goodness.
share with everyone. You can make it up now and then
I can make
and then you
program
have
it
to
later.
implement it. Yeah. We're committing
A
into
double
something.
click.
I mean, we did
Alt.
make it so that you can use Command F to be able to search your entry.
Yes,
like an
search
individual
within
entry.
the text.
Right.
That is cool, and it highlights the text.
Yep.
So Command F for that.
Yep, so that's great.
And Option Control F will also bring up the search menu, but just for the main timeline, so you can search for tags.
Yeah, Option Command F. So it's
What did I say?
Use it Control.
Control.
But it's Command.
That's
yeah,
what
so,
I meant.
So Command F to search within an entry, and if you add Option to that, then it searches. It brings up the search for the whole app.
Right.
Is the find the same that is on the the Mac iOS? As far as can you go or Mac OS? Can you go in and do find and replace?
Yes.
If I'm dating somebody else, or I want to replace an old girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
Replace with.
Yeah, you can. So if you hit Command F, then it comes up and there's a little checkbox over at the right that says replace, and we can change all of the things that say today and change it to be last year.
Love it. Okay, good.
Yep.
And that's new too, so I like that.
Yep.
Very cool stuff. I think that was a big ask for day one. And
Yeah, I heard a lot of people asking about that. So we're excited that we can get that out to our users.
How about sorry, go ahead.
No, you're.
How about a feature that you really want implemented and it's not implemented yet? It's either on the list or you've tried to talk to Paul about it and he's like, BJ, really? We'll never do that.
Yeah, so one thing that I would love is the ability to have a shared journal with my wife.
Yes.
Right.
That's a big ask.
It is. It is. So she likes to write down all the fun things that the kids say and take pictures of them. And I would love to have those in my journal as well. And that's, we've looked at how to do that. The one concern that comes up again and again is, well, if I have the ability to share my journals, then suddenly I have to worry about, is this shared or is this private?
Right.
And at least up to this point, we've decided that we want to help people feel really confident that everything here is private. It's only yours. Nobody else is going to see it. So I understand why we're there, but I do wish that we had that. I would love to be able to share a journal.
Right. I think that's a big thing. We tested it internally, and some things worked and some things didn't. Like I remember, I had 30. I ended up with 30 duplicate journals. Something was going wrong on my end, but
yeah, the internal development is always fun.
Right. We were all sharing a group day one journal.
Yeah,
and we'd put stuff in there, but I'd delete it and it would come back the next day. Anyway, it was really crazy. But we did try it out, so it's not like that's far from our brains.
Right.
Obviously, there's power in that, I think. And to your point, sharing stuff with a spouse or a loved one or whatever, I think it would be cool to do it on a family trip, where everybody's taking their own pictures, they're documenting different things, and at the end of that trip, I put it into a book and we give everybody a copy. So I've got a physical reminder.
That's so much better than just the Photos app and just commenting, "Oh, cute picture," whatever. But yeah, entries.
It can be,
so
if that floats your boat, and I think it would be pretty fun, especially on bigger family trips or something like that. Maybe because I've done extended family trips to Yellowstone or Disneyland or something like that. And
speaking of
that'd be
trips,
really cool.
Have I mentioned you guys? I'm going to Japan tomorrow.
Yeah, don't rub it in.
Every day I've mentioned it.
Don't rub it in.
I'm really excited.
Actually, you brought it up on the Facebook page, which I'll go back to right now.
Got it right here. Got it right here.
You've got your journal ready for it.
I do, and I want to shout out to so many in our Facebook community that chimed in on that thread. It was really fun to see everyone's ideas on apps they use, how they use day one. Paul even joined in on the conversation, how he records his trips. And I want to, again, thank everyone. There's too many to name, but I want to thank everyone who joined in on that conversation. One, in fact, even commented about how awesome that the community is. That's Ursula Nocell, that said how awesome and impressed she is with the community that helped another user with this kind of information. So thank you.
Awesome.
Journal's ready.
Well, yeah.
Ready to go.
Have fun in Japan, Brett.
I will. Thanks.
Question for BJ, performance stuff. How much, as you're developing, these new things, new designs, you're going through it with the team in your meetings, Paul as the designer is throwing stuff at us let's do this. When you're putting those things in, are you testing for performance during that time, or are we relying more on the beta part of it to get into that nitty gritty stuff?
Certainly, I will test performance as I'm going.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm the best performance tester because we have users that have tens of thousands of journal entries, and I don't necessarily have that.
Right.
I'm usually working with. Often when I'm developing something, I'm working with one individual entry. Right.
Okay.
I'm saying, okay, what happens if I add multiple photos all at once. Does that work?
Yeah.
But in terms of the sheer quantity of data, Paul is often our best tester there.
He does have a lot.
He's got a lot, and so he'll come back and say, "Hey, this is feeling really slow," and then I'll look into it and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can see that is pretty slow." And just in
how do you see that in the code? I don't mean to interrupt, but like he says it's slow. He comes, you maybe witness it. He's reproducing it on his device or Mac or whatever, and you go, "Yeah, that is slow." And you go into the code, like I feel like in my mind, you're like the guy at the Matrix station looking at just all the falling digits here, and you're like, "Oh yeah, it's right here." Like you can see that. Is that kind of maybe how it is, or am I just like imagining that way too hardcore?
That would be really awesome if that were the way it is.
But what are you looking at in the code to kind of help identify that?
So there's various tools. There's a tool called a profiler that you can hook up, where you basically run the app, and it's doing like performance charts as you're running it. So I can start the app, I can load it, and maybe I switch to the photo timeline, or I do whatever thing is slow. And as I do that, I can see, on my chart, suddenly I'm going up to 100% CPU or 80% CPU or whatever. And not only that, it doesn't just show me how much CPU it's using. It actually shows which parts of the code are being run at that time. And so I can say, oh, look, it's spending 75% of its time just on this one particular bit of code, doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Okay.
Can I remember, instead of doing that hundreds of times, can I remember the result of that computation and use it once? Is it something that can be reused multiple times? And that can yield a big speed up.
Nice. That's all fascinating to me. I hope I'm not boring our listeners today. But that's fascinating because there's a lot that I think that goes on behind the scenes that we don't recognize. Right. Sometimes I feel, this is just a personal opinion, this does not reflect Day One or anything else. We should put a disclaimer before this podcast.
The daily comment, the daily opinion.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it feels like when we get feature requests, we might tend to think that it's pretty easy, like flip a switch or just turn this on in your systems and then I have that feature, right? But there is a lot more complexity that goes behind the scenes on this kind of stuff. Like somebody has gone in and written code to make these things work. So when I click this button, a new entry comes up. Or when I drag a photo in, it adds it to my journal and syncs it to the rest of my devices. There's so much complexity that goes on behind the scenes here. So it's fascinating to hear that, perspective that I can, use third-party tools or whatever to identify, here's a performance where I'm lacking. How do I improve that? It shows me the code and I can go and change it. Anyway.
Yeah.
I want that for my life.
It's true that...
Exactly.
Something
yes.
to identify where I'm lacking.
We need a profiler for our lives.
That would be great. It's true that features often have a lot more work put into them than you would expect. Like for example, this week I was working on some improvements to the grouped photos. So if you add a bunch of photos at the same time to an entry, you get kind of this collage view where they're all laid out next to each other. And
a lot of that, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt again. One of our developers, June, has worked on that a lot. There's an algorithm now that's placing the photos where their aspect ratio is maintained, and it just looks really clean.
It does.
And nice.
It looks really nice.
And it adapts to your window size.
Right.
So if I'm moving or widening the window, those photos are changing their layout. And, not a ton, but it can be adjusted, and it's really cool.
Yeah,
anyway,
so that is really great. One thing was, okay, well, what if I have another photo that I want to stick into the middle of that group? When we first added those groups, there wasn't really a good way to do that. It was, you could add a new group photo, but it would just add to the end.
Right.
And so I spent multiple hours this week working on, you say, oh, it's pretty easy. Just, drag in the middle and then it'll go in the middle.
Just put it in there.
Yeah. I spent multiple hours working on making it so that while you're clicking and dragging over, you see the nice little blue indicator saying, oh, it's going to go here or it's going to go there.
Oh,
and, just that little bit of interface took a long time to get really good.
And multiple BJ hours equals 2 weeks of a mere mortal
regular
developer.
People.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of thing that you think, oh,
amazing.
like nobody ever pays attention as you're dragging. They don't think, oh, look how pretty that is. It's just something that you expect to be there.
Sure.
Right? It's just and a lot of the features that we work on, the goal is to make it so that people don't notice the work that's done.
Just
that it's just obvious.
Beautiful.
Reminds me of that Back to the Future quote when Elijah Wood is playing the video game and Marty comes over and he shows him how to play Gunslinger or whatever. And the kids go, what, you mean you have to use your hands? He's like, yeah, it's a baby's toy, like the idea. There's technology's come a long way. And now, like my kid, my 4-year-old can play Minecraft. And he loves just spawning dolphins and killing zombies. Like, he's hilarious. He's like, oh, I'm going to kill that zombie because it's creepy. I'm like, you're 4. How do you know how to do this? How does he know how to drop a bunch of lava over a bunch of zombies. I know I'm getting off in the weeds
So
here.
meanwhile, BJ's 4-year-old is actually programming
I know.
Minecraft.
No, but my point is like we do kind of expect that these days.
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
smartphones are so prevalent. We expect things to just work, and when they don't, we get frustrated, and that makes total sense. I'm not trying to disparage that at all.
Sure.
Especially for like a paid app. If I'm paying for app, I want it to work, right?
Of course.
And so, to your point, we just expect that to happen.
Yep.
But on the back end of it, BJ or whoever else has put hours into making that code work and making it work right and testing it and trying it out, and then then we put it out there. So we can't always be surprised that features can take some time. Like video is going to be a big one.
Yeah. Well, and you think, oh, okay, well, you made it so that you can drag the thing. Well, it turns out that that's different if you're dragging in a photo or a file from your file system, or if you're dragging in a photo from that same group, or if you're dragging a photo from a different group in the same entry. Like
all these
of
variables.
Those. So there's a bunch to think about. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into the development.
So that's why I wanted to get BJ on the show. I
Yes.
wanted him to talk about this and kind of lay that out for us, because that to me is fascinating, and I hope that's helpful for our listeners to understand that a lot of the care that's put into this app. We're a small team, but we care about how it works. A lot of us are users. We also want to see these things work, and we want it to work for everybody else so that we can also keep our jobs. So,
Right on. Thanks,
All right.
BJ.
All right, I talked a whole bunch. Do you have anything else? Any wrap up?
No, I just, again, appreciate BJ for your time and expanding, telling us more about Mac 3.0 and what goes behind it.
We do want to know if you could tell us what's your personal use in day one like?
So I have work journals that I have here that I just am throwing random data in all the time. But
Mostly test stuff,
right?
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we added the ability to have multiple journals, that was such a benefit, because previously I could not really use it for myself. But now that we have multiple journals, I can. So I write in there a few times a week, usually when interesting things happen or kids do cute things. Yep.
That
It's a lot about recording family life. Is what I use it for.
Yeah, that's how I am.
So you're saying your kids only do cute things twice a week, basically.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
Mine are much cuter than. Actually, they're teenagers. They're not.
Yeah, I know. I was
They
going to
were
say,
really
Brett,
little.
that's you're going to have to make that argument a little harder.
So twice a year, I record the cute things my kids say.
There you go.
That's more like it. Okay.
But yeah, no, I think that's healthy to illustrate that we use the app, we care about what is going on with it, and obviously we care about listener feedback as well. I want to tell our users that word count is coming back to the entry view as an option. So if you're hearing this and you love word count, you like being able to keep track of that, when 3.0.2 is released, you will be able to toggle that on in the preferences for appearance. So check that out. If you do want the word count now, you can click on the More button at the top right of an entry, or right-click / control-click on any entry in the timeline view to also see the word count there. So
Nice.
there's options if you don't want it to display all the time, and then there's options if you want it in the entry coming in an update.
Sure. BJ, I just want to know, when you're talking about your personal use of day one, has your process changed over the years since you've worked here? In fact, how you record, how you
I
use
definitely
it?
use it more often. And as we've added more features, as we added multiple photos, as we added audio, I've started to use it more, and that's exciting. It enables me to record things. My wife uses it all the time, and every day she's telling me, oh, here's what happened. She loves On This Day.
Yeah.
Every day she's telling me, this is what we were doing a year ago or 3 years ago, or this is what the kids said 4 years ago. And that inspires me to record more of my own thoughts as well.
Yes.
Cool.
That's great.
Very cool. Anything else?
No, I think we're good. I think
Merry
it was a
Christmas, everybody.
Jeez. I hope it's sunny where you are,
It's
wherever you're
snowing
listening.
so bad.
Yep.
Oh, that was fun to wake up to. Utah
wasn't.
weather, everyone.
A lot of places are like that, right? It changes in 5 minutes.
I know. Anyway, thanks for joining us this week. We've got more coming at you. We've got some great plans for a few future episodes. Do you want to give a teaser for that, Brett?
Rosemary is going to be on our next podcast in a couple of weeks. Rosemary Orchard. There we go. She has been on. In fact, we had Brian.
Renshaw.
Thank you. He was also really active in the Automators podcast. But Rosemary and Dave Sparks do that podcast,
Right.
Automators. Anyway, they both went off a whole episode. We've talked about this, I think, in the past, but a whole episode on journaling. And I loved her workflows because they're pretty intricate. I think they're going to be some great ones for the power users of day one to pick up and use. she'll be on the next podcast. So
Awesome.
look forward to that.
Good to look
Yeah.
forward to. So stay tuned for updates coming to day one. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks, BJ, for being on the show again.
Glad to be here.
We do enjoy your insight. BJ is one of my favorite people. So
Yeah.
anyway, thanks for joining us. If you have any needs and you need some help with Day One, you can go to help.dayoneapp.com for help guides, tutorials, tips. If there's something missing there, let me know. I'll fix that. You can also contact support by going to our support channels, and those are all laid out at dayoneapp.com/contact. There's an email option. There's a chat option right within our iOS or Android apps, so check that out. So if you need help, you can go there. Obviously, subscribe to our podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to contact Brett and I personally about the podcast, any feedback or things you'd like to hear on the show, write us at podcast@dayoneapp.com.
Right on.
All right. Till next time, everybody. Have a great couple of weeks.
Sayonara.